Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UHS Discovery as his ship moved slowly toward the dead planet below. The world had once been green and full of life, but now it looked like a giant rock covered in dust and broken cities. His crew had been exploring this system for 3 weeks, and they had found many strange things, but nothing like this planet. Dr. Lisa Carter walked up to him, holding a small device that was beeping softly. She had been studying the ruins on the surface for days, and her face looked worried. The planet showed signs of a great war, but there were no weapons marks or bomb craters. Everything just looked like it had been turned to dust in a single moment. "Captain, the readings are getting stronger," Lisa said as she checked her device again. "There is something down there that we need to see. The energy patterns are unlike anything we have found before." Commander Ryan Walsh joined them at the front window of the bridge. He was the security chief, and he always looked ready for trouble. His hand stayed close to his weapon as he studied the dead world below them. 3 years of deep space missions had taught him that quiet planets often held the worst surprises. "Sir, I recommend we send down a small team first," Ryan said in his usual careful voice. "We don't know what killed everything down there, and I don't want to risk the whole crew." Jake nodded and gave orders to prepare a landing shuttle. Within 2 hours, he was walking through the ruins of what had once been a great city. The buildings were still standing, but they looked wrong somehow. Everything was covered in a strange gray dust that seemed to move slightly in the wind. Lisa led them to a large building in the center of the city. Her scanner was making excited noises as they got closer. Inside the building, they found a room filled with floating crystals that glowed with a soft blue light. When Lisa touched one of the crystals, the room suddenly came alive with images. The holographic display showed the history of this world and its people. They had been a peaceful race that loved art and science. They had never fought wars or built weapons because they believed all life was sacred. Their cities were beautiful and their people were happy for thousands of years. Then the images changed to show the arrival of the Zephyrian ships. The alien vessels were huge and dark, and they filled the sky like storm clouds. The peaceful people of this world tried to communicate with the Zephyrians, but the aliens had not come to talk. A tall alien figure appeared in the hologram. It had gray skin and red eyes, and it spoke in a voice that sounded like breaking glass. The translation system on Lisa's scanner worked hard to change the alien words into English. "We are the Zephyrian hegemony," the alien said. "You will serve us or you will die. Give us 80% of everything you produce every year. Give us your strongest people to work as slaves. Give us your children to train as soldiers. You have one rotation of your star to decide." The peaceful people had refused. They said they would rather die free than live as slaves. The Zephyrian response was swift and terrible. The hologram showed the alien ships firing a strange weapon that turned everything it touched to dust. Cities vanished in moments. Forests became empty wastelands. Oceans dried up and mountains crumbled to powder in less than 1 day. An entire civilization was gone. Billions of lives ended not in explosions or fire, but simply turned to dust that blew away in the wind. The last hologram showed a single survivor hiding in this building as he recorded the final message of his people. "Let others know what happened here," the dying alien whispered. "Let them know that the Zephyrians show no mercy to those who refuse to bow down. Warn them that freedom has a price that some monsters will never let you pay." Jake and his team stood in silence as the hologram faded away. They had found the answer to what happened to this world, but it was not an answer that made them feel better. Lisa was already recording everything while Ryan was checking his weapons as if expecting Zephyrian ships to appear at any moment. 3 days later they were back, on Earth, reporting to Admiral Kate Phillips at Solar Command. The Admiral was a tough woman who had spent 40 years protecting human space. She listened to their report without saying a word, but her face grew darker with each detail. "How many worlds like this have you found?" she asked when Jake finished his report. 17 in the last 6 months, Jake replied. "All of them show the same pattern. Peaceful civilizations that refused Zephyrian demands and were completely destroyed." Admiral Phillips walked to the big window that looked out at Earth's blue oceans and white clouds. Somewhere out there in the darkness between stars, an empire of killers was growing stronger every day. She had spent her whole career preparing for threats to humanity, but this was bigger than anything they had faced before. The communication alert sounded across the command center. A technician called out that they were receiving a transmission from outside the solar system. The signal was strong and directed specifically at Earth. Admiral Phillips ordered it to be put on the main screen. The image that appeared made everyone in the room step back. It was a Zephyrian exactly like the one they had seen in the hologram. The alien's red eyes seemed to look directly at each person in the room as it began to speak. Primitive humans of the third planet. The alien said in perfect English, "I am Ambassador Vextar of the Zephyrian hegemony. Your species has been observed and judged. You will submit to our rule, or you will be eliminated like the others." The alien continued with the same demands that had been made to the peaceful people of the dead world. 80% of all resources, the strongest humans to work as slaves, children to be trained as Zephyrian soldiers, 1 year to prepare for total surrender. "You have seen what happens to those who refuse us, Ambassador," Vextar said as the transmission began to end. "We have conquered 847 species across this galaxy. Your primitive weapons and small ships mean nothing to us. Submit or face annihilation. We await your answer." The screen went dark, and the command center fell silent. Admiral Phillips turned to face her officers, and Jake could see something dangerous growing in her eyes. It was not fear or despair, but something much more deadly. It was the look of a predator that had just been challenged by something that did not understand what it was dealing with. "Get me President Brooks," Admiral Phillips said quietly, "and activate Protocol 7. It's time to show these aliens what happens when they threaten Earth." President Amanda Brooks walked through the secret corridors deep beneath the surface of the moon. The hidden base called Darkside had been built over 50 years ago, but most people on Earth did not even know it existed. The meeting room she entered was filled with the most powerful people in human space, but their faces showed worry and determination. General Chris Martinez stood at attention as the president entered. He commanded the Space Marines and had fought in every major conflict for the past 20 years. His scarred hands and careful eyes showed that he understood what real war looked like. Next to him, Admiral Kate Phillips reviewed data on her tablet. While her mind worked on problems that would decide the fate of humanity, Dr. Benjamin Park sat at the large table surrounded by files that were marked with the highest security levels. He was a thin man with gray hair, but his brain held secrets that could change the balance of power in the galaxy. For 30 years, he had been working on projects that officially did not exist. "The Zephyrian ultimatum gives us exactly what we expected," President Brooks said as she took her seat. "They believe we are a primitive species that will either submit or die quickly. They have no idea what they are really dealing with." Admiral Phillips activated the main display screen, which showed a map of human space, 12 star systems with small colonies and mining operations, a few hundred ships that looked like simple cargo haulers and research vessels. To any outside observer, humanity looked weak and scattered. "This is what the Zephyrians see when they look at us," Admiral Phillips said. "A small species with basic technology and no real military power. They think we will be conquest number 848. General Martinez smiled in a way that would have worried any enemy who saw it. "They have no idea that we have been preparing for them for over a century. Every ship they see has hidden weapons. Every colony has underground bunkers full of equipment they cannot imagine. Every human in space has been trained for this moment." Dr. Park opened one of his secret files and spread the contents across the table. The papers showed designs for weapons and technologies that seemed impossible. Ships that could become invisible. Weapons that could destroy matter at the atomic level. Armor that could stop any known weapon. "The Prometheus project has been humanity's greatest secret," Dr. Park explained. "While the Zephyrians were conquering primitive species, we were studying every piece of their technology we could find. We learned their weaknesses and we built weapons specifically designed to exploit them." President Brooks looked at each person in the room. These were the people who would either save humanity or watch it die. The decision she was about to make would determine which outcome became reality. "We are going to surrender," she said quietly. The room fell silent. General Martinez started to speak, but the president raised her hand to stop him. Admiral Phillips looked confused, and Dr. Park frowned as he tried to understand what she meant. "We are going to surrender publicly and completely," President Brooks continued. "We will send a message to the Zephyrians telling them that humanity accepts their terms. We will ask for time to prepare our tribute and reorganize our government. We will appear to be exactly what they expect us to be." Understanding began to show on the faces around the table. This was not surrender, but the greatest deception in human history. The Zephyrians expected humans to either fight uselessly or submit completely. They would never expect a species to fake submission while preparing for total war. Admiral Phillips began to smile as she realized the brilliance of the plan. "While they wait for us to gather tribute, we will be positioning our real fleet. Every cargo ship will move to strategic locations. Every mining platform will prepare its hidden weapons. Every colony will activate its defense systems. The Zephyrians will see what they want to see," General Martinez added. "Humans loading cargo ships with resources to pay tribute. Humans dismantling their small military. Humans acting like a defeated species that knows its place." Dr. Park was already making notes about equipment that would need to be moved. Project Ragnarok can be completed during the tribute year. The gravitational weapons will be installed on every major platform. The quantum disruptors will be ready for deployment. The molecular phase cannons will be charged and targeted. President Brooks stood and walked to the window that looked out at the black space between stars. Somewhere out there, the Zephyrian Empire was celebrating another easy conquest. They had no idea that they had just made the biggest mistake in their 10,000-year history. "Send the surrender message," she ordered. "Make it sound weak and desperate. Ask for mercy and time to comply with their demands. Let them think we are terrified and helpless." 3 days later, Ambassador Vextar received humanity's response. The message showed President Brooks looking tired and defeated as she accepted all Zephyrian demands. She asked for 1 year to gather the required tribute and restructure human government to serve their new masters. The Zephyrian leadership was amused by human weakness. They had expected some resistance from a species that had managed to reach other star systems. Instead, they found creatures that surrendered without firing a single shot. The year delay was granted easily because it did not matter when they collected tribute from such a pathetic species. What the Zephyrians did not see was the real activity beginning throughout human space. Captain Jake Morrison received new orders that transferred him to a ship that officially did not exist. The UHS Retribution was hidden in the asteroid belt disguised as a mining operation, but it was actually the most advanced warship ever built. Dr. Lisa Carter found herself working with scientists she had never met on projects that pushed the limits of physics. Dr. Kevin Wright specialized in quantum mechanics, while Dr. Maria Santos worked on weapons that could phase through any known armor. Together they completed technologies that would have seemed like magic to earlier generations of humans. Every human colony began construction projects that appeared to be industrial improvements. New factories to produce tribute for the Zephyrians, expanded mining operations to gather resources, better communication systems to coordinate tribute collection. In reality, they were building the infrastructure for the largest military operation in human history. Hidden shipyards throughout the outer system worked around the clock building vessels that existed only in classified files. Ships that could accelerate faster than anything the Zephyrians possessed. Weapons platforms that could destroy enemy fleets from impossible distances. Defense systems that could protect entire planets from orbital bombardment. The year of apparent submission was actually a year of the most intensive military preparation any species had ever undertaken. Humanity had spent over a century studying their eventual enemies, and now they were putting that knowledge to use. When the Zephyrians returned to collect their tribute, they would find something very different from what they expected. Admiral Phillips stood in her command center watching reports come in from across human space. Every system was ready. Every weapon was charged. Every ship was in position. The greatest deception in galactic history was about to reach its conclusion, and the Zephyrians still had no idea what was waiting for them. Fleet Commander Casthul looked out at the blue and green planet ahead of his massive warship. Earth looked peaceful and beautiful as it turned slowly in the darkness of space. Soon, it would belong to the Zephyrian Empire, like so many other worlds. The humans would work in the mines and factories until they died, and their children would serve as soldiers in future conquests. His fleet of 500 ships moved into position around Earth's orbital space. Each vessel was larger than anything the humans had built and carried weapons that could crack a planet's surface. The Zephyrians had conquered nearly 1,000 species using these same ships and tactics. This would be just another easy victory. "Commander, the humans are requesting permission to board with their tribute," reported his communications officer. "Their president wants to personally surrender to show respect for Zephyrian power." Kazthul laughed as he imagined the terrified human leader crawling before him. Some species fought uselessly before dying, while others surrendered immediately. Either way, they all ended up serving the Empire or feeding the recycling plants. Humans had chosen the smart path by giving up without a fight. Captain Jake Morrison watched the alien fleet from his hidden position behind one of Jupiter's moons. The UHS Retribution looked like a small research vessel on any scanner, but it carried more firepower than a traditional battle fleet. Around him, dozens of other ships waited in similar hiding spots throughout the solar system. "All stations report ready," his tactical officer announced quietly. "Weapons are charged and targeting systems are locked on enemy vessels. We can begin the attack on your command, Captain." Jake shook his head and checked the chronometer on his display. "Not yet. The President needs to deliver her message first. Everything depends on perfect timing." Hidden throughout the system, hundreds of other ships waited for the same signal. What looked like cargo haulers and mining vessels to Zephyrian sensors were actually the most advanced warships humanity had ever built. Asteroid mining stations revealed massive railguns pointed at enemy formations. Research platforms powered up weapons that could bend space and time. Dr. Benjamin Park monitored the deployment from his control center deep inside Earth's moon. Every screen showed green lights as humanity's secret arsenal came online. Gravitational weapons that could tear apart enemy ships at the molecular level. Quantum disruptors that could phase enemy vessels into different dimensions. Temporal distortion, cannons that could age targets into dust in seconds. "Phase 1 weapons are fully charged," reported Dr. Lisa Carter from her station. "Phase 2 systems are standing by for activation. All hidden platforms are ready to reveal themselves." Dr. Kevin Wright checked his quantum interference systems that would jam all Zephyrian communications. Dr. Maria Santos verified that her phase variance weapons were targeted on enemy shield generators. Every human scientist and engineer in the system had spent the last year preparing for this moment. President Brooks walked aboard the Zephyrian flagship with a small escort that included Admiral Phillips and General Martinez. The aliens led them through corridors that seemed designed to make visitors feel small and helpless. Zephyrian soldiers lined the walls holding weapons that hummed with deadly energy. The throne room was enormous and decorated with trophies from conquered worlds. Skulls from 100 different species hung from the walls, while broken flags and banners showed the symbols of dead civilizations. Commander Kazthul sat on a chair made from the bones of some long-extinct creature. "So the primitive humans come to grovel before their new masters," Kazthul said in his harsh voice. "Your tribute ships are prepared. Your strongest people are ready for slavery. Your children will learn to serve the Empire or they will die." Other Zephyrian officers laughed as their commander mocked the human delegation. These aliens had destroyed civilizations that were far more advanced than humanity. They had weapons that could sterilize entire star systems. They had conquered species that had ruled the galaxy for millions of years. "Tell me, human." Kazthul continued as he leaned forward on his throne. "How does it feel to know that your species will never be free again? Your people will work until they die, and your world will become a factory for the Empire. This is the fate of all inferior species." President Brooks stood quietly and let the alien finish his speech. Around her, the Zephyrian officers smiled with cruel satisfaction as they imagined the wealth they would extract from human space. They had done this same thing to hundreds of other species, and it never got old. When Kazthul finished speaking, President Brooks raised her head and looked directly into his red eyes. Her voice was calm and steady as she spoke the words that would change galactic history forever. "You want war," she said clearly. "Then prepare for annihilation. The words were transmitted instantly to every human ship and platform in the system. Operation Scorched Earth began exactly as planned, and the Zephyrians learned too late that they had made a terrible mistake. Every innocent-looking cargo ship suddenly revealed hidden weapon arrays that had been disguised as loading equipment. Mining platforms that seemed to be gathering resources for tribute opened up to show massive railguns that were already locked onto Zephyrian targets. Research stations that appeared to be studying space phenomena powered up experimental weapons that violated every known law of physics. Captain Morrison gave the order that began humanity's revenge. All ships fire at will. Show them what happens when they threaten Earth. The first volley of human weapons caught the Zephyrian fleet completely by surprise. Ships that had seemed harmless moments before unleashed devastation that tore through alien hulls like they were made of paper. Gravitational weapons twisted enemy vessels into impossible shapes before crushing them into nothing. Quantum disruptors phased entire alien ships into dimensions where they simply ceased to exist. Dr. Park's most secret weapons came online as asteroid bases revealed cannons that fired concentrated gravity waves. Zephyrian ships that had survived. Thousands of battles were torn apart at the atomic level. Their shields meant nothing against weapons that attacked the basic structure of matter itself. Commander Kazthul watched in horror as his mighty fleet began to die around him. These primitive humans had somehow hidden an arsenal that surpassed anything the Zephyrian Empire possessed. Ships that looked like cargo haulers moved like fighters and hit like dreadnoughts. Weapons that seemed impossible were tearing his forces apart. How is this possible? He screamed at his officers who were frantically trying to coordinate a defense. These are primitive creatures. They have no advanced technology. They surrendered without a fight. Admiral Phillips smiled as she watched the alien commander's confusion. You never bothered to learn anything about us. You saw what you wanted to see and believed what you expected to believe. That was your first and last mistake. The battle that followed was not really a battle at all. It was a demonstration of what happened when humanity decided that a species needed to die. Captain Morrison led his squadron of ships through the wreckage of what had once been the Zephyrian fleet's outer formation. The alien vessels that had looked so powerful just minutes before were now twisted metal drifting in space. Some ships had been torn in half by gravitational weapons, while others had simply vanished when quantum disruptors sent them to dimensions that did not support matter. His ship, the UHS Retribution, moved like a hunting animal, stalking wounded prey. The vessel appeared small compared to the massive Zephyrian dreadnoughts, but it carried weapons that made size meaningless. Each shot from its main cannon could penetrate any known armor, while its defensive systems made it nearly impossible to target. Enemy formation Delta 7 is attempting to retreat toward the outer system, reported his tactical officer. Shall we pursue? Captain Morrison checked his scanner display, which showed dozens of Zephyrian ships trying to escape the killing zone around Earth. Some were badly damaged and leaking atmosphere, while others seemed intact but were fleeing in panic. None of them would be allowed to carry word of this battle back to their empire. All units engage at will, Morrison ordered. No alien ship leaves this system. No alien survives to tell their masters what happened here. The hunt that followed showed the galaxy what humanity could accomplish when they stopped pretending to be peaceful. Ships that had appeared to be simple patrol vessels revealed themselves as the deadliest predators ever built. They moved through space with impossible speed and struck with weapons that defied understanding. Dr. Lisa Carter coordinated the deployment of Phase 2 weapons from the command ship UHS Nemesis. These were the experimental systems that Dr. Park's team had been developing in secret for decades. Weapons that could manipulate the basic forces of reality itself. Temporal distortion cannons are firing on enemy cluster alpha, she reported, as she watched alien ships age into scrap metal in seconds. Nanite swarms are deployed against cluster beta. Quantum phase shifts are targeting cluster gamma. The Zephyrian ships had no defense against weapons that attacked them in ways they had never imagined. Nanite clouds consumed enemy vessels from the inside out, turning advanced alloys into dust. Temporal weapons aged 1,000-year-old ships into ancient relics that crumbled at the first impact. Phase cannons shifted enemy hulls into different dimensional states where they could not exist. General Martinez commanded ground forces that boarded any Zephyrian ship that attempted planetary landing. His soldiers had been enhanced with biotechnology. that made them faster and stronger than any normal human. They moved through enemy corridors like ghosts, leaving no survivors behind them. The Zephyrians discovered that humans fought with a creativity and ruthlessness they had never encountered in their 10,000 years of conquest. Every human tactic was designed to cause maximum psychological damage while eliminating enemies with brutal efficiency. There were no prisoners taken and no mercy shown. One group of Zephyrian ships attempted to form a defensive formation around their command vessel. They activated their most powerful shields and charged their heaviest weapons, believing that concentrated firepower could break through human defenses. They learned too late that humanity had been preparing for exactly this situation. Admiral Phillips watched from her command center as the enemy formation appeared on her tactical display. "Deploy the Excalibur array," she ordered calmly. "Show them what we built while they thought we were gathering tribute." Hidden weapons platforms throughout the asteroid belt suddenly revealed themselves. What had appeared to be mining operations were actually the largest weapons ever constructed by any species. Cannons that were kilometers long and powered by artificial singularities. Railguns that could accelerate projectiles to significant percentages of light speed. The first shot from the Excalibur array struck the Zephyrian command ship with the force of a small star, going supernova. The alien vessel simply vanished in a flash of energy that lit up half the solar system. The remaining ships in the formation were destroyed by the electromagnetic pulse that followed. Dr. Kevin Wright's quantum interference systems jammed all Zephyrian communications, preventing any ship from calling for help or coordinating with others. Enemy vessels found themselves fighting alone against an enemy that seemed to anticipate their every move. Human tactical computers had been studying Zephyrian combat doctrine for over a century. Dr. Maria Santos watched her phase variance weapons tear through enemy shields like they were made of air. The Zephyrians had spent thousands of years perfecting their defensive technology, but none of it worked against weapons that attacked from different dimensional phases. Their shields were designed to stop energy and matter, but not attacks that came from outside normal space. The battle continued for 6 hours, but the outcome was never in doubt after the first human volley. Zephyrian ships that had conquered hundreds of worlds found themselves helpless against an enemy they had completely underestimated. Their superior numbers meant nothing when their weapons could not penetrate human defenses, and their shields could not stop human attacks. Some alien crews attempted to surrender, but human forces had been given clear orders. This was not a battle for territory or resources. This was humanity's announcement to the galaxy that they would not tolerate threats to their existence. Every Zephyrian who had come to enslave Earth would die in this system. Captain Morrison's ship pursued the last group of fleeing aliens toward the outer planets. These were fast scout vessels that might have escaped if they had been facing any other enemy. But humanity had spent decades developing ships specifically designed to hunt down anything the Zephyrians could build. "Target the lead scout," Morrison ordered, as his weapons officer locked onto the fleeing ship. "Fire when ready." The shot was perfect, and the alien vessel exploded in a brilliant flash. The remaining scouts tried to scatter, but there was nowhere to run. Human ships appeared from every direction, moving with coordinated precision that spoke of years of training and preparation. Within minutes, the last Zephyrian ship in the solar system was destroyed. The mighty fleet that had come to collect tribute from a primitive species was now nothing but debris floating in the vacuum of space. Not a single alien survived to carry word of their defeat back to their empire. Admiral Phillips stood in her command center, looking at the tactical display that showed only green markers indicating human vessels. Every red marker representing an enemy ship had disappeared from the screen. The first phase of humanity's war against the Zephyrian Empire was complete. "All ships report enemy contact eliminated," her communications officer announced. "No alien vessels detected anywhere in the system. Total enemy casualties confirmed." The admiral nodded and activated the communication system that connected her to every human ship and station in the solar system. When she spoke, her voice carried the satisfaction of a plan that had worked perfectly. "This is Admiral Phillips to all units. Phase 1 of Operation Prometheus is complete. Prepare for Phase 2 deployment. It's time to carry our message to the rest of the galaxy." The wreckage of the Zephyrian flagship drifted slowly through space as President Brooks walked through its broken corridors. Emergency lighting cast strange shadows on walls that were decorated with trophies from 1,000 conquered worlds. Those civilizations had been destroyed by the same arrogance that had brought this fleet to Earth. Commander Kazathul lay dying in what remained of his throne room. The alien's red eyes looked up at the human president with something that might have been respect mixed with terror. Around him his officers were dead, and his mighty ship was nothing but a tomb drifting in the vacuum. "How?" was all he managed to whisper as his breathing became weaker. How did primitives defeat the hegemony? President Brooks knelt beside the dying alien commander and spoke quietly. "You never bothered to learn what we really were. You saw a small species with basic technology and assumed we would be easy prey. You never imagined that we had been preparing for you for over a century." Kazathul's eyes widened as he began to understand the magnitude of his mistake. "You knew we were coming." "We knew something like you was coming," Brooks replied. "We found the ruins of civilizations you destroyed. We studied your tactics and your technology. We spent generations building weapons specifically designed to counter everything you could do. When you arrived, we were ready." The alien commander tried to speak again, but death took him before he could form the words. President Brooks stood and walked to the ship's communications center, where her technical team was preparing to broadcast humanity's message to every corner of the Zephyrian Empire. Dr. Park had designed a transmission system that could penetrate any known jamming technology. The message would be sent simultaneously to every major Zephyrian world using quantum entanglement communicators that had been secretly deployed throughout their territory over the past 50 years. Captain Morrison supervised the preparation of courier ships that would carry copies of the message to every inhabited system in known space. These vessels were humanity's fastest and most advanced scouts designed to outrun anything the Zephyrians could send after them. The message itself was simple, but devastating. President Brooks stood before the camera with the wreckage of the alien fleet visible through the windows behind her. Her voice was calm and steady as she spoke words that would change the balance of power in the galaxy. "This is President Amanda Brooks of the Human Federation, speaking to the Zephyrian Empire and all who hear this transmission. Your fleet came to our system expecting submission and tribute. Instead, you found annihilation. Let this serve as notice to the Zephyrian Empire and all who would threaten humanity." She paused and gestured toward the debris field that had once been 500 of the Empire's most powerful warships. "We do not surrender. We do not submit. We do not forgive. You have awakened something that your empire has never faced before. A species that turns warfare into an art form." The camera moved to show Admiral Phillips standing beside tactical displays that revealed the true scope of human preparation. Hidden weapons platforms were scattered throughout Zephyrian space. Sleeper agents had been placed in every major alien system. Humanity had been seeding the galaxy with instruments of war for decades. For over 100 years we have been preparing for this moment, Admiral Phillips said as the displays showed the locations of thousands of hidden human assets. Every major Zephyrian world has been under our surveillance. Every fleet base has been targeted. Every industrial center has been marked for destruction. General Martinez appeared on screen next to images of enhanced human soldiers who had been secretly inserted into Zephyrian territory. "Your empire is not as secure as you believe. We have been watching you. We have been learning your weaknesses. We have been preparing your downfall." Dr. Park's final revelation came as the camera showed the weapons that would make humanity's threat real. Gravitational bombs that could collapse star systems, quantum viruses that could destroy entire fleets, temporal weapons that could erase civilizations from history itself. "You believed you were the apex predators of this galaxy," Dr. Park said as the displays showed weapons that defied understanding. "You were wrong. You have been surpassed by a species that learned from your cruelty and improved upon it." President Brooks returned to face the camera for the final part of humanity's declaration. Behind her, the last pieces of alien ships burned in Earth's atmosphere like falling stars. The message she was about to deliver would echo across the galaxy for generations. "This message is not just a warning," she said with quiet conviction. "It is a declaration of war against the entire Zephyrian Empire. You came to our world seeking slaves and tribute. Instead, you have awakened humanity's true nature. We are not the peaceful species you believed us to be. The transmission showed images of human fleets emerging from hidden bases throughout the galaxy. Ships that had been disguised as cargo haulers revealed their true nature as instruments of destruction. Mining operations became weapons platforms. Research stations became military bases. Operation Prometheus is now active. Admiral Phillips announced as the scope of human preparation became clear. All hidden assets are weapons-free. Every Zephyrian world will learn what happens when you threaten Earth. Every alien ship will burn. Every enemy soldier will die. Captain Morrison's voice joined the transmission as his scout ships prepared to carry the message throughout known space. Let every species in the galaxy understand what they have witnessed here. Humanity does not seek conquest, but we will not tolerate threats. Those who come in peace will find friends. Those who come with chains will find graves. The message concluded with President Brooks delivering humanity's final ultimatum to their enemies. The Zephyrian Empire has one choice remaining. Withdraw from all conquered territories and disband your fleets or face total annihilation. You have seen what we can do to your most powerful ships. Imagine what we can do to your worlds. As the transmission ended, human ships throughout the galaxy began to move toward their targets. The Excalibur arrays hidden in deep space powered up their singularity cannons. Quantum bombs armed themselves in the cores of Zephyrian suns. Temporal distortion fields prepared to erase enemy fleets from the timeline itself. The war that followed would be remembered as the shortest in galactic history. The Zephyrian Empire that had conquered nearly 1,000 species over 10 millennia found itself facing an enemy that had turned preparation into perfection. Humanity had spent over a century learning how to destroy them, and now that knowledge was being put to use. Admiral Phillips watched from her command center as reports came in from across the galaxy. Zephyrian fleet bases were being eliminated by hidden weapons. Their industrial worlds were shutting down as quantum viruses destroyed their computer systems. Their military commanders were dying as enhanced human soldiers struck from the shadows. All primary targets have been eliminated, her communications officer reported. Secondary targets are being engaged. Enemy response has been minimal and ineffective. The Admiral nodded and opened a channel to President Brooks, who was still aboard the captured Zephyrian flagship. Madam President, the galaxy is learning what happens when humanity decides that a species needs to be taught a lesson. President Brooks looked out at the stars, knowing that somewhere among them, ancient enemies were dying and new friends were being born. The message had been sent and received. Humanity was no longer hiding among the shadows of space. They had announced themselves as the galaxy's new protectors, and the universe would never be the same. Captain Morrison's ship jumped to hyperspace carrying copies of humanity's declaration to every corner of known space. Behind him, Earth continued to burn, not from alien conquest but from the forges that were building the greatest war machine the universe had ever seen.